Hi everyone, it's Miss Terry, and today I'm going to talk about my high school selections for September in the genre of mystery and horror. First, I have The Companion, and the back of the book reads, "Life with my new family is simple. There are rooms I don't enter, questions I don't ask, and secrets I can never tell." And so sets the tone for this rather creepy story about a girl named Margot who is the sole survivor of an accident that killed her entire family. And she gets taken in by the Sutton family, who is they're kind of loosely connected to her father. She goes to live at their house, which is this big, huge, beautiful mansion, but it's really like right out of the 1900s. There's no internet, there's no television, there's no popular culture at all. It's really kind of this old relic of a home. And she's been taken in to be a companion to the family's teenage daughter, whose name is Agatha. And Agatha is really, she's gorgeous and she seems amazing. But it doesn't take long for Margot to realize that something is wrong with Agatha. And in fact, there's something wrong with the family itself. And as she gets more and more connected to this family and to this house, she realizes that some secrets are better left kept secret. It's called The Companion. This next one is called The Murder Game, and this is about a boy named Luke, and he's, your typical ready to go to college kind of teen. He's an athlete, he's a scholar, he's an activist, and he goes to a boarding school. And he and his roommate Oscar, who's not so on track for college, in fact, Oscar gets in trouble, seems to find him wherever he goes. Well, Luke and Oscar and two girls from their boarding school decide to sneak out one night and have a little party on their own in the woods, and they end up stumbling upon a murder scene. And it turns out that Mrs. Heckler, who is the flirtatious wife of one of the deans, ends up murdered. And there's a lot of rumors going about, even maybe rumors that she was having an affair with a student, but suddenly suspicious turn towards Oscar, and Luke decides that he's going to try to find out what exactly happened in the woods that night and whether or not he can clear his roommate's name. It's called The Murder Game. This next one is called The Follower, and this is a story about Instagram famous triplets, Cicely, Amber, and Rudy, the Cole triplets, who really have made a name for themselves on social media. And in reality, even though their life seems kind of perfect, they actually have to continue doing their Instagram posts and videos because it's the only thing that's really keeping their family afloat money-wise. Their dad has a horrible gambling addiction, and he's constantly flitting away their money, and the only thing their mom can think to do is kind of uproot them constantly and move them around the country. They're really into real estate, so they buy houses and they sell them, and they're just trying to stay afloat. Well, their newest project takes them to a town where they buy what is known as the Creepy House, which is the site of several rather brutal murder-suicides. And the girls are kind of stuck there trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this house, and their parents kind of keep being very dismissive about it. And then they start receiving rather threatening posts from somebody who calls themselves The Follower. And as things start to get dicey, the girls realize they're going to have to try to solve the mystery of what had happened at this house and who this new follower might be. So it's called The Follower. Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson is actually not a new story, but number 4 in the series just came out. So I thought I'd start with number 1 in case you missed it. And this is a story about Ellingham Academy. It's in Vermont. It's kind of where the brightest of the bright go to school, the brightest thinkers, inventors, artists. And it was founded by Albert Ellingham in the 1930s. And he really wanted to found this academy where learning is fun. So it has a lot of puzzles and mysteries and riddles built right into the school itself. And Stevie goes there. And what had happened is in the 30s, Ellingham's wife and daughter were kidnapped and held for ransom. Eventually, the wife of his body was found murdered, but his daughter Alice was never found. And Stevie is determined that she's going to be the one to crack the case and find out what happened those many years ago. But unfortunately, another body at the school turns up murdered, and Stevie discovers that she might have bitten off more than she can chew. So this is truly devious. Really great read if you like that plucky heroine, kind of like Nancy Drew, but definitely a more modern take. This next one is called The Marvelous, and this is also about a very wealthy heiress named Jewel Van Hannon, and she's very popular on social media, and every year she kind of hosts this golden getaway at her wooded mansion estate, and she's chosen several of her followers, including Luna, Nicole, and Stella, to come for the weekend to compete for prizes, and mostly a $500,000 cash prize, which all three girls need for different reasons. Well, when they get there, they discover that it's actually a grueling competition, where the activities become more and more dangerous, even leaving some on the brink of insanity. And the three girls realize that they might have to band together in order to survive this weekend. And they really have to decide, is the money worth it? And that's called The Marvelous. And the mystery is in, why is Jewel doing this contest? And why were the three of them chosen to be a part of this game? This next one is called Swallow. This is definitely in the horror genre. And this is about Mildred. And Mildred is miserable. She's overweight. She's got pockmarked skin. She's very unconfident. She's not able to stand up for herself very well. And she is bullied horribly at school. And she's had enough. And she decides that she's going to look elsewhere for some help when the adults in her life really prove to be useless. And she ends up going to a place called Crossroad Magics and buying a revenge spell from a witch there. And little does she know that this spell is going to really unleash chaos on her own life as well as those of her enemies. This is definitely on the bloody and gruesome side. It does have some murder and gore and cannibalism, but if you like those kind of horror stories, you definitely will enjoy The Revenge of Mildred in Swallow. This next one is called That Weekend by Kara Thomas, and this is a story about Claire, and pretty much the week before prom, her longtime boyfriend ends up wandering off into the woods with another girl, and she just can't take it. So she decides to ditch prom and go on a secret road trip with her best friend Kat and her boyfriend Jesse. And Claire secretly kind of has feelings for Jesse, has always been a little bit jealous of Kat. Well, they end up going off on this road trip into the woods, where Claire wakes up 48 hours later, bloodied, having no recollection of what has happened over the last 48 hours, and her friends are missing. And so now everybody's on the hunt for where these two teens have gone, and Claire is really struggling to remember what has happened. Unfortunately, the suspicion quickly turns to her, and there are people who are convinced that her jealousy of her friend made her kind of go loopy over the weekend and kill both Kat and Jesse, and now she's trying to clear her name. So it's called That Weekend. Don't Tell a Soul is a story about a girl named Bram who is kind of escaping her home in New York with her mom, her socialite mom, who's kind of had enough of her. Bram has a bit of a drug addiction that she's trying to work through, and so her mom sends her off to live with her uncle at a place called a town called Louth near the Hudson River, and he lives in kind of this old building that is this old manor that's known for the dead girls. So a series of girls that had ended up dead there. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the manor and what happened to those girls, and there's definitely things going on that nobody will seem to tell Bram, one, that she's in trouble or who's putting her into trouble, and unfortunately, because of her addiction, not everybody's willing to listen to her. And it kind of goes back to the idea of that an unhappy woman is more likely to believe to be crazy than to be listened to. This is a story of Bram trying to solve the mystery of what is going on at her uncle's house. It's called Don't Tell a Soul. The Perfect Place to Die is a historical mystery, and it takes place during the 1893 Chicago's World Fair, and it focuses around a girl named Zaretta. She's 17 years old, and she has escaped an abusive home in Utah to follow her sister Ruby, who had left years before, who had managed to, get away, and she ends up following her to the World's Fair. And at that World's Fair, there was a serial killer named H.H. Holmes, who was kind of who was killing women throughout the fair. And Zaretta kind of gets caught up in this mystery and trying to solve the murders of these girls because she's worried that her sister might be one of the victims. She decides to go undercover as a maid in a kind of creepy hotel called the Castle. And each of the chapters of this book starts with a statement from the confession of the killer. So you're kind of getting that back and forth, like we kind of know what has happened and now we're trying to come back and piece it all together. So that is called The Perfect Place to Die. And then the last one I have for you today, this one is called Horrid. And this is another creepy mansion story. Creepy houses seem to be a common trope of horror books, and this one is about a girl named Jane whose father has recently passed away, and her mom Ruth reveals to her that they are completely broke. So they decide to move from California to Maine to take up residence in the house that Jane's mom has, Ruth's grandmother, left to her. And it's called North Manor, but it's nicknamed the Creepy House. And this book definitely has a Stephen King creepiness to it, as things in the house are not what they seem. And there's a lot of mysterious, bordering on the supernatural events happening in the house. And that is called Horrid. Enjoy.